Hi, it's Dougie Wood, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about the top 8 SharePoint site designs for organizations. I'm going to share with you an amazing top tip about SharePoint designs, which is the SharePoint Lookbook. Now you're in luck because all the examples I'm going to show you today are straight out of the SharePoint Lookbook, which is essentially like a pre-canned set of templates that you can use to build SharePoint sites straight away. It's kind of like Microsoft's cookbook for SharePoint. So everything I'm going to be showing you today is from here, but I've gone through the effort of deploying everything so that actually you can see what these look like without having to waste your time going through and actually deploying them all. So let's take a look from this page, and actually you can get to this just by Googling SharePoint Lookbook and it'll be the top hit when you find it, but I will also drop a link for this into the description box below. Once we're on this page, we click on See Examples, and that's going to take us to this area here. Now, I'm going to have other videos which are going to talk about some of these other areas, but today I'm just purely going to be focusing on the Organization tab. You can see here, previously I've covered off things like the Department tabs, but today we're going to focus on the Organization tab. So we've got a number of different templates in here. The very first one is Leadership Connection. So let's just jump into here. So the leadership connection is defined by Microsoft as the leadership site provides insight into the goals and priorities of the leadership team and inspires engagement with events and conversations. This is what it will kind of look like when you deploy it. Obviously, you can change the colors. You can actually change the whole thing because it's all just out of the box SharePoint. It's pretty cool as well that actually it'll list out the site features on the left hand side. Now I'm not going to go through every single template and show you all the different site features. I'm going to eventually speed this on along a little bit and just show you the actual templates. But if you're interested in what the site features are, they do actually list them in here in terms of it having configured as organization news source, mega menus, footers, also what web parts are being used, because this actually is what kind of helps you break down to understand in the site template what web parts are being used, because if you've never seen a SharePoint site which looks this good, you can instantly think, oh, this is using custom code or magic or something like that to make it look like this, but actually it's not. It's out of the box web parts. So having a list here of all the web parts it's going to use, for example, we've got the stream web part here, which obviously will be doing things like the video embed. We've got the Yammer conversations, which will be doing things like the conversation board on the left hand side. So you've got all the kind of breakdown of exactly what is being used on that page to achieve that particular functionality. So even if you weren't necessarily deploying this template and using this template in full, you might think, oh, actually, I really like the look of that or the functionality of that. What web part is doing that? To actually add this to your tenant, you can go through this add to your tenant button and it will guide you through what you need to do. Some templates are slightly different where you need to create the site first and apply the template to afterwards. Some of the templates will just create the site for you. So just follow that wizard step by step and it'll tell you what you need to do. But as I say, I've already deployed all of these, so I can show you them today to speed up that process for you. So let's actually take a look at the Leadership Connection site once it's been deployed. So this is the site. So this is the site that we're looking at. And as you can see, I've not attached it to a hub, and it's not enabled it as a hub to start off with or anything like that. And this is the layout. So we've got the large kind of hero tiles across the top. Now, me personally, from a SharePoint design perspective, I'm not a massive fan of the hero tiles right at the top in full width like this. We're going to look at some other designs later, which is using the hero tiles, but they're smaller and they're combined with other web parts as well. The hero tiles, when it's full on the page like this, can sometimes people miss the content which is underneath it, and they land straight on this and they bounce straight off it. So if you're thinking about having some kind of splash page which you can land on and instantly jump off to, then a layout like this is quite useful. As I should stress as well, all these templates that we're looking at, you don't have to necessarily be thinking about, oh, I have to use this for a leadership connection site. You could be thinking about these designs as just food for thought on designing an intranet homepage, for example, or any other type of SharePoint site. So just take it with a pinch of salt what the actual context of it is. We're more interested today to think about what the layout and the designs and things like that are. And if you can take away a template and use it for its actual purpose, even better. So, as I say, we've got these tiles across the top, and they're linking off to key areas of this particular SharePoint site. We've also got some promoted kind of links across the top of this site navigation bar up here, which is giving you a bit of an insight about what potentially users might want to see on a leadership connection site. Things like the leadership teams. This is a page which has been created for you just to give you a bit of an idea of what this might look like. These could be potential sort of pictures of the different leaders, some slides which explain them, or maybe some pictures and of their hobbies and things like that, just so you can get to know that leadership team a little bit more. You might also want to have things like customer stories or what your goals are. Obviously, this is in 2019 to 2020 because this was probably when Microsoft originally created this template. Um, so there's a couple of different things across the top up here, which are just food for thought, again, ideas. So going back to the home page, again, underneath our hero web part, we've got this news web part. So because typically you would not expect to have a lot of news that's coming from the leadership all the time, maybe it's like a monthly update, then having this kind of layout here with only a few tiles showing, large tiles rather than little small ones, then maybe we're only showing the last 3 months worth of updates, for example. We could embed things like stream web parts for videos. So if there was things like, again, monthly updates, quarterly updates, Q&A sessions being run by your leadership, then those videos can be recorded and embedded into here. Maybe we've got a Yammer feed for people to be asking questions, and there'll be like a live Q&A via Yammer. And again, some nice quick links. So this is actually a hero web part again, but it's just actually been put into tile view. So rather than being the large squares like we see at the top, we've got it in a tiled view. And then we've got some events as just event web part, where people can create events and then other people then can add them to their calendars. But there's no booking system necessarily that's built into the events web part. And then across the bottom, we've just got a little sort of caption here. So maybe this is just like a little bit of a kind of mission statement or something like that, a little quote from one of the senior leadership team. So going back to our site designs in our lookbook, I'm actually going to skip over the perspective just for now. I will come back to it, I promise, but I wanted to just do a bit of a comparison with that and another one which has got a very similar purpose, but the layouts are different. So I'm just going to skip over that for now, and I'm going to go to the crisis communications area. So the crisis communications area, now I believe actually this was released around the 2019, the 2020, 2021, somewhere around that. It was during the kind of COVID kind of sort of times where there was a need to get information out to people quickly, and everybody having a kind of an update because things were changing all the time. It was a really crazy period when you think back about it, and rules were changing, where you could go was changing, all those sort of things. So actually having a site where all that information was kept up to date was really useful, and actually people which are adopting this type of use of SharePoint was actually way more efficient and staying ahead of the curve. But it could be used for all sorts of different things. I believe that it's been used in the past before for things like earthquake crisis and things like that. But Microsoft basically describe it as a way of keeping people informed, engaged, and moving forward during a crisis. From extreme weather events to health and safety emergencies, this template creates a central resource for leaders and communicators to share important news and announcements. A single source of truth. I really like that phrase, a single source of truth, because that's exactly what it is. It's where you can jump in and you can get the latest information. There might be a bit of kind of sort of whispers going on around kind of work about, oh, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. This is the latest information in that place, so you can go there and you get the latest information. So a little pro tip here from Microsoft as well. The site includes a Yammer conversation web part connected to Yammer community where people can share knowledge and experience, ask questions, and get answers. And there's a link there as well just to explain a bit more about kind of Yammer. So again, it's a place of feeding in. So rather than having these kind of questions and concerns and worries in isolation, it's actually having a centralized community area that people can be posting. And again, maybe thinking back to that leadership connection, they could maybe use that same kind of Yammer feed to be trying to help people and squash their kind of concerns about a crisis which is going on. Again, all the site features, web parts, and content which is included is listed here. So I'm not going to go through all these. I'm just going to show you the template. Here we go. So here's the crisis management site. As you see across the top, I've not connected this to a hub, and it's not a hub site in itself, so it doesn't have a hub navigation bar across the top. Now, if you remember from what I was saying about the last template, about how the hero tiles, I'm not a massive fan of hero tiles which take up the full width of a page. The reason being is I much prefer, if you do need links, and quite often these types of sites, people want to quickly access links. So having large tiles to navigate to something that's important information is vital. So it's fine to use the hero web part, but I actually prefer combining it with, say, this vertical section so that you've got more on the page. The hero tile itself is not taking up the full width of the page, so you've got more chance of seeing a bit of sneaky content underneath it, as well as some secondary content on the right-hand side. So this particular template, we've got the hero across the top. It's linking out to sort of key information, getting sort of updates, finding support and things like that. Then on the right hand side, we've got this secondary content area. So this is maybe some FAQs. So where can I get more information about health and safety? What workplace policies are changing? Things like that. Things which people are probably going to be looking at in a time of crisis. They want to quickly find out what's changing, what's happening around me, who do I contact, when's the next update going to come, all that sort of stuff. FAQs will be linked across the side here. Underneath that, then we've then got this news web part, and this could be used for maybe new updates, changes, company news, things like that. That's the main place that updates are going to likely be posted. You've then got things like a people web part, which might be the response team or who to contact in the time of the crisis, things like that. So these I've actually shown kind of benefit from actually boosting kind of almost like authoritative kind of signals to people, that when they're seeing messages come out in a crisis, they know that they've already seen these people on this board, so they know if messages, news articles, Teams posts, anything are coming from these people, then obviously it's official, it's validated, and people should be taking their word as the latest kind of truth. Again, we've got another quick links web part here. So some essential resources. It might be things like setting up a VPN if you're in a crisis area, new training kind of opportunities, wellness in the workplace, things like that. Again, events web part. So these might be upcoming kind of events, things which are kind of going on related to the crisis. So key things, dates and times. Additional resources, so again, more quick links on here, but they're displayed in a slightly different way. And then we've got a call to action web part. I quite like the call to action web part when it's used quite large like this. Essentially, it is just a giant button, but we can change the background image, we can change the link of where it's going to, and we can change the text which sits on top of it. Then underneath this, we've got a little bit of our kind of comms board, which is made up of 3 web parts, which is the Yammer web part for conversations, posting, questions, surveys, polls, things like that. And then we've got 2 Twitter web parts, which of course would pull out tweets from the latest kind of feeds. So these might have been pulling from the sort of World Health Organization during the time of COVID, but whatever the sort of crisis is related to, likely that would be there'd be some kind of Twitter feed that'll be pulling in latest information from external sources. So you're getting both an internal update via your Yammer feed and your news feeds, and you're getting external updates from Twitter feeds as well. So just going back to our lookbook again, the next one I want to talk about is a news site. So the news site actually is defined by Microsoft as a communication site. So everything we're looking at actually in here, I should stress, one of the questions I had in a previous design video was what site template, be more specific, what type of SharePoint site are they? You've only got communication sites or you've got team sites. Everything I'm showing you as part of today's video is a communication site. So that's why the layouts look in this particular way. So Microsoft has described this as a communication site with multiple news sources and news layouts to highlight stories and events from all levels of your company's organization. And obviously, of course, if you wanted to, if it doesn't include it, you could include things like a Twitter web part or something like that to pull in news from external sources. You can also use the news web part to pull in external sources, but you do have to manually link them to each news article that you want to pull in. So again, all the site features, web parts, and things like that are linked in here. So let's just jump in and let's take a little look at this. So a news page, I tend to find from my experience, they tend to really be worthwhile setting up a news site like this. If you're working in quite a large and enterprise organization, when you've got news that's potentially being pulled up from all sorts of different areas, regions of the world, different business units and departments and things like that, and you just want a centralized place for all the news, because although your intranet homepage will likely contain news, it can easily be kind of overwhelmed with the volume of news if you're working in a very large kind of company. So actually having a place where you can go and actually say, just show me news. I'm not interested in quick links and other things which an intranet homepage might have. I'm just interested in the news element of this. And then you could roll this up from all sorts of different areas. And I've worked with organizations which you can do things like audience targeting, which basically means that you can limit the news that people see based on what group they are a member of. And those groupings, as I say, typically are things like what business unit are they part of, or what area of the world they're in. So last year I was working on a news site like this where they had news that was being created in the US, in Europe, in Asia, and things like that. And depending on what group, as in what office location you're part of, you would only see the US news that would appear as your primary news, and then you had the option of drilling into, say, news from around the world, which would then contain news from all the other areas. But that would obviously be specific to the user that was looking at it. So if I was somebody who worked in Europe, I would see Europe news as my primary news, and then I could drill into US news or Asian news afterwards. So this is a Contoso news template. So this is just a little bit of example. Again, we've got no links across the top because we're expecting that all of the content is pretty much in the body of this. So across the top, we've got this hero tiles. The hero tiles might be a way of either linking to promoted kind of news articles, so they're fixed kind of news articles. And I have seen people use the hero web part before to have these kind of fixed in time news articles that are sort of in your face that you can kind of see and they don't necessarily change. But it also could take you to some pages where there's some news web parts which are filtered in a very specific way. So as I say, you might be sort of having news articles based on where they are in the world, or business units, departments, things like that. So those pages might filter those news articles for you. Again, underneath this, we're rolling this news up in a couple of different ways. So this is one news web part, pulling out the top 4 news, and this might be, say, pulling out the top 4 news articles which relate to technology, for example. These are the next news web parts, and maybe these are pulling them out based on the region of the world that I work in, for example. So again, it's just 2 different news web parts which are filtering news on different types of criteria. Then underneath that, we've then got industry news. So this is again a little sort of news area. Actually, I think this could be a quick links web part, which has just got some links that are populated inside of it. Events, so this is the events web part. Again, once you've populated this, you could choose to add some of these events to your own calendar. This is another news web part. It's actually this is essentially 2 separate news web parts. A news web part here, which is pulling out some articles and displaying them in a list format, and some news articles that are being displayed in a slideshow. Again, how you categorize what news fits into those different boxes is totally up to you. This actually is just multiple web parts. This will be an image web part, this will be a text web part with a button web part underneath it as well. And then further down, we've got events web part again. And we've also got, this is actually a hero web part, but it's in tile view and it's only got a single tile. I really like this. This is actually almost like a secret design tip inside of SharePoint, is to use a hero web part with only one tile, and you get this nice image and text with these kind of little call to action links and a label across the top of it as well. Further down, this is a hero web part again, but it is in the kind of square mode rather than layers. Sorry, this is actually this is in layer mode. This is in tile mode. But we've got two here, and again, this might be sort of branching off into different areas of news. So it's quite common as well in these types of areas that you do have a kind of navigation that's built onto each page, which maybe sort of lets you cycle through the different areas, different categories of news. So that's our news site. As I say, it's typically only adopted by larger kind of organizations, enterprise level kind of organizations, because you tend to find small, medium-sized businesses don't generate enough news to warrant having a news site specifically just hold news and nothing else. Usually small and medium-sized businesses, if they're using SharePoint as an intranet, the news web part on the homepage is enough. They only have a handful of news that's being created on a frequent basis. So the next site I want to talk about is the landing, and actually this is the one that I want to compare with the perspective above it, because actually it's both news heavy. Okay, this one might have some videos and things like that. This one might say it has resources, which will just be quick links, and personalized content, but they're essentially what an intranet homepage template could potentially look like. So let's look at the landing first. So the landing describes itself as the communication site designed to be the place where your employees can find the news and resources they need, plus personalized content tailored just for them. This is like an intranet homepage, essentially, is what we're kind of looking at this point. And that's why I want to compare it against the perspective as well, which again is kind of like an intranet homepage template. So if you're in the market for a new shiny intranet homepage, then these two templates are worth considering as a starting point, essentially. So this is what the landing template looks like. From here, you can see across the top, we've got our site navigation. So site navigation, again, typically this would likely be turned into a hub site, and this navigation would be more likely a hub navigation. But just for this example, let's think of it as just it's a site navigation. But who we are, so what's happening, find it. These are some common kind of terms, buzzwords, keywords I've seen people use as headers for their navigation. So who we are, and then underneath that there might be links to the leadership connection page, or bios about the kind of leaders, pages about the departments, links to org charts, basically describing who we are. Maybe things about their culture, mission statements, things like that. There'll be sublinks in that area. What's happening? So this might be linking out to your news site that we were just looking at before. It might be an area for events. Again, although there's not a template for like an events kind of hub, I've seen the same concept of what we were just looking at for news, but just for events as well. So if you've got a large or enterprise organization with a lot of events being set up, then you could maybe create a little bit of a page as like a little hub of all of those events as well. Find it, again, this might link out to sort of key kind of knowledge base articles, things like that. My SharePoint might just be linking off to an area that which is showing you personalized content for SharePoint, or a bit more information about what SharePoint is. So just looking at this template then, we've got a slideshow across the top, and actually this is one of my favorite sort of layouts for SharePoint, and if you follow my videos for a while, you'll see that I use this kind of concept quite a lot, of having a slideshow across the top paired with a vertical section with content on the right hand side. I really like this because it really does balance out. In a design world of SharePoint, I'm always trying to balance out the kind of functionality of the site, so the links, the navigation, with the kind of the nice aesthetics of images which look good, as well as actually promoting sort of news and notifications, articles, things like that. So this is really good kind of layout for that, because you've got your slideshow across the top, which has got news, and typically these news articles are related to everybody. So when we're talking about audience targeting or having different news for different people, the slideshow is typically for everybody in the organization that's relevant to. And then as you scroll down, you've got this secondary kind of news area here. And this might then be targeted to you based on where you are in the world, what department you work in, what business unit you're in, anything like that, that might be more specific to you. Or it might just be a bit more kind of like B category news. So it's just rolling up news articles which are maybe not so relevant to absolutely everybody that's looking at this page. On the right hand side, we have got this vertical section, and in here we've actually got this countdown timer, which is just a little countdown to a particular time maybe it's an event or a product launch or something like that. But it does also have this call to action button type feature built into it as well. So if it was something that, like an event you wanted people to sign up for, you could bounce them through into that. If it was more information on something that's happening, you could bounce them through to that. Essentially, it just links to something that will take you to either a SharePoint page or an external website, whatever it is that you're linking to. Underneath that, then we have our world clock, so we can see time in all the different areas, and you can put this into any particular order that you like, and you can have, within reason, as many world clocks as you like. I tend to find don't have more than 3 or 4 though, because you end up with this massive list, and it doesn't look great. So if you can combine it, put it onto that. Or if, say, for example, you are an enterprise company and you're operating in loads of different time zones, it might warrant having its own page and then having a particular button where it says, if you want to see all the world clocks, for example, click here, and then you can see all the different times and all the different areas that your organization operates in. You can also have local weather as well. And you can have multiple locations for this as well, which is pretty cool. So if you were traveling around and you go into different offices, you can see what's the weather forecast for that particular day. Further down then, so we've got our quick links web part here, and this might be linking off to kind of all sorts of different types of useful content. But again, recommended viewing, it might be things like training videos, sort of any workshops that kind of leadership have been running recently, anything like that, anything recording. Video content is getting more and more important to have on an intranet. People expect a lot more video content in their day-to-day lives. They're used to using things like TikTok and YouTube and things like that. So video content is getting more and more important. So if you're thinking about designing an intranet, and you're expecting maybe your CEO is going to be releasing kind of quarterly updates, rather than them being just a news article, as in like creating them as like a newsletter type style, try and see if you can twist their arm into creating a little video, just recording something with their phone, just a few minutes long or something like that, and that will get a lot more engagement than actually just having some text and images on your intranet page. Again, we've got to see the use of things like our Yammer feed, so any questions, polls, surveys, things like that. A Twitter feed, pulling out the latest tweets. A news, so this could be my news that's coming from different areas of the intranet. Recent documents, so this is where you get a little bit of personalization. Because my recent documents and my frequent sites is actually specific to the current user that's looking at this. So this is essentially content that I've recently been accessing inside of Microsoft 365, and it's showing me those links I could easily quickly get back to. Also, my recommendations, so it knows based on content I've been accessing recently, here's some content maybe I haven't been accessing, but I might be interested in. And at the very bottom, we've then got these kind of, these are actually, I think they're either image web parts or call to action web parts. Don't shoot me on this. Sometimes they look very similar. In fact, this is going to bug me. So I'm just going to go into edit mode. I'm going to go and find out what these are. They're image web parts. Cool. So as you see, image web parts can sometimes look quite similar to a call to action web part. So if I just show you, compare this call to action web parts, this is what a call to action web part looks like. And depending on the space that it's being used, it will look slightly different, right? So you can forgive me for thinking that these do look quite similar. The giveaway, actually, and I should have known this, the giveaway as a call to action web part has a button on it, not just a piece of text. So these are actually just image web parts, but image web parts can be used as buttons as well. So these are all clickable, so you can all have clickable hyperlinks on an image with a little bit of a text label that sits on top of it as well. So the reason why I wanted to kind of show you the landing and the perspective template side by side is so that you can kind of see the difference between the two. But they're very similar in terms of their intranet kind of templates. So on that note, let's just roll back to our templates area here, and let's just go to the perspective. Now, the perspective, as I say, is designed to offer news and personalized content. The site also includes video to inspire even more engagement. Again, it's an intranet homepage, essentially, and it has all very similar kind of features, but they're just going to be laid out in a slightly different way. So let's jump in and take a look at that. So here's the perspective site. Again, things like who we are listed across the top. So our company, people, values. So actually all those things I described to you off the top of my head before, we've just got these kind of as examples in here. So what's happening, events, find it. So here's a load of different things. People are often looking for things like policies, sort of information about office locations, getting support with tech, and things like that. So listing all of those out underneath these areas is a great idea. Then underneath this, we've got a very similar kind of concept of it. It's an intranet homepage, which is all about navigation, as well as providing news articles, things like that. So across the top, instead of a slideshow, this one's leaning more towards the functional side of things, of having a hero tile across the top, which is going to help us navigate to core areas of our intranet, or linking us out to third-party websites and apps as well. Underneath that, again, we've got this news web part. So this news web part is showing quite a lot of different news. Because we're not using a carousel, a slideshow of news, we've got more space here for more news articles and things like that to flow through. On the right-hand side, again, we've got this vertical section, but instead of having loads of kind of different web parts, we've just got a local weather. So this template lends itself more towards a small or medium-sized kind of business, whereas the landing was more of a large organization, which is maybe worldwide, for example. So maybe those are the two different types of reasons why you might choose one layout over another. Then you've got My News. So this could be news specific to you. This could be audience targeted news. So it may be showing up just because you're in a particular group, which is based on your job title, your department, where you work in the world, or something like that. Again, personalized content for things like my recent documents and my recent sites. We've also got, and this is definitely a call to action web part because we've got a button here, but I really love this. I really like the kind of the call to action web parts when they're full width like this with a nice image in the background. It's a really great use of space, and it really does get people's attention for your call to action to click on the button and take them somewhere. But these call to actions, they could be used for all sorts of different things, getting people's attention for latest policies, asking them to submit some feedback or a survey. It could be all sorts of different things. Then underneath this, this is actually just, again, use of imagery. So image web parts, text, and button web parts. We've got things like company events, which is an events web part, and this again is a hero web part in layer mode, and this is actually showing you that same kind of layout we looked at before, but it's much wider. And I again really like when the hero web part is displayed in this way. So this is just another kind of intranet-y kind of looking template, so it's worth checking out and comparing the two. Potentially the perspective would be better for a smaller organization, and maybe the landing would be better for a larger or an enterprise organization, but I'll let you decide between the two. Again, because it's all out of the box SharePoint, you can delete, remove web parts, or try and create a hybrid between the two by looking at them and rebuilding one of them closer. So there's no hard and fast rules that it has to be one particular template 100%. You can always tweak it. So going on then, we've got our benefits site. So the benefits site falls under the kind of human resources, HR kind of area. And this page brings together all the information your employees need to understand and access their benefits, including top tasks and events. So let's just jump in. Now, this particular layout, if I'm totally honest, I don't really like this design. This, out of all of the designs, is probably my least favorite design, not because of the context of what it is. The context is great. You should definitely have a benefit site in your SharePoint. But the actual layout, I'm not too overly fussed. It makes me feel like it's quite an old kind of look and feel. The look and feel across the top up here of having this kind of large image across the top was used right in the early days of kind of when, well, I say early days, a few years ago when modern SharePoint first hit SharePoint Online, you could have modern pages. Everybody's kind of intranet homepage kind of looked a little bit like this because you could have these kind of large images across the top of pages and things like that. So to me, it kind of feels like it's outdated in a sense. Also, I don't really like the use of space, that you've got this large image and then you're kind of cutting off the hero tiles web part already. So you can't even read what this tile text even says. It just doesn't really feel great to me, the look and feel of this particular page. But the context of having a benefit site, definitely do. So as you scroll down, you've got this hero web part. Again, maybe linking off to things like tuition assistance, achieving financial independence, more information about the benefits of working for the company and why you should work for the company. As you scroll down, then got top tasks, so find a provider, view my claims, things like that. These are linking out to core kind of pages of SharePoint. Actually, I quite like this. This is obviously just a text web part, but it's a great way of actually having a kind of navigation that's customized, that's built into directly into the page. We've then also got things like our tiled web part on the right hand side of our hero web part, Contoso ways for use, quick links web part, events web part, people web part. Again, not overly fussed. I don't want to put you off, but I'm not overly fussed about this template. But it'd be worth you taking a look at this just to get a bit of food for thought of how to set up a benefits site, because it's really useful inside of an intranet to actually have your benefits listed for your employees, because retention of employees can always be quite difficult. So actually having a place that's kind of drummed into them all the time, where it's really readily available, where they can find out why it's worthwhile working for your organization, is always going to be really useful. So then going back to our lookbook, the final 2 pages are the final 2 site templates are less about site templates, to be honest. So they're laid out very much the same. It's more the context which is important, right? And I imagine over time Microsoft will release more and more of these types of things. The first one is LGBTQ plus related information, and the second is the Hispanic Heritage Month related information. So let's first just take a look at the LGBTQ plus template. So this is described as to be used for the LGBTQ plus employee resource group site template to quickly create a communication site to uplift employee resource groups, support their career growth of people in your organization, and help advance equality and allyship for all. This template features content focused on LGBTQ plus employee resource group, but can be adapted to fit a variety of other employee groups of your organization. So it's a great little kind of Kickstarter for, especially for things like Pride Month as well, that you're kind of showing that you're inclusive, and you're wanting to promote the kind of this kind of movement within inside of your organization. So let's take a little look at the template. So the template is obviously promoting things like the colours of the flag. It's got some information about the kind of the mission, our vision of the organisation related to this. It could have Pride-related news, so events which are coming up and things like that can also be posted on here. So it's a very simplistic template. There's not a huge amount in here. There's an idea of things like you could have some resources about us, things like that, or becoming a member, joining the kind of community of that within inside of your organization. But it's more, as I say, it's contextual. It's the thought that counts. And then it's really down to you to kind of run with this further yourself. And to be honest, it's the same story when we look at the Hispanic Heritage Month. Very similar kind of layout. The use of the Hispanic Heritage Employee Resource Group site template is to quickly create a communication site to uplift employee resource groups, support the career growth of people in your organization, and help advance equality. So essentially, it's the same story, what Microsoft are trying to do here. And this is why I imagine that they potentially might release a few different templates like this in the future, to sort of help with that kind of engagement and inclusivity inside of your organization. So let's have a look at that template quickly as well. Again, across the top, we've got different kind of themings. We've got the mission around this, the vision around this, news related to this particular topic, as well as events which are coming up as well. There's actually, I suppose, one thing I do quite like from a design perspective of this is that they've set up almost what looks like a footer, which you don't necessarily see a lot inside of SharePoint, but I think this one looks really good. This is just quick link web parts, sort of hyperlink web parts, put into sort of 3 columns across the bottom, but it looks like a nice little footer, and it goes very well with the kind of the colors that are being used on this site as well. So again, it's just food for thought, a little bit of what potentially you could do, and maybe even be thinking about other kind of groupings inside of your organization that you might want to have a similar site for. So thank you very much for joining me to walk through all the different SharePoint site designs which are available from Microsoft for free using the lookbook. As I say, if you've not looked at this lookbook before, go and check it out. Have a little play around with it. It doesn't take that long to deploy the templates. So if you're interested in them, deploy the ones you're interested in. Have a little play around. If you've got any issues, comments, questions, use the feed below. I know when people have used the lookbook in the past before, there has been a couple of kind of error messages and things like that which have come up, which people have got unstuck with. So if you run into any of those types of things, just use the comment feed below, let me know, and I'll try my very best to answer what I think the potential issues are for that. But other than that, if you have enjoyed this video, please do like the video, subscribe for future videos, and as I say, keep a lookout for future videos coming out. Thank you very much.